Hey everyone, adakai TCG here, and today I'm coming at you with a video for a deck build. I just came back from my locals. I went undefeated with Black Luffy. And so, with the release of EB01, I kind of wanted to take a look at this leader one more time because, again, he is one of my favorite leaders to play. I just really enjoy um, the simplicity of his leader ability, but then the effectiveness of it. And so um, wanted to give him a try with some of the newer cards, and after some testing, I thought it did have quite a few tricks up its sleeve. Black is just really strong right now as a color, and so trying to take advantage of that and the advantage of being able to trade with him. And so, for those of you who don't know, what this leader does is on your turn, when a character is KO'd, you can give up to one Rest of Dawn card to this leader. And so yeah, I've talked about this in my previous videos for Black Luffy, but I just love how efficiently he can trade. And so you get to do what Black likes to do already, which is KOing things, but then hit a little bit higher than you're supposed to with your current Dawn allocation because of his ability. And so you're not only removing your opponent's board, but now you're swinging 6 or 7 or sometimes even 8 with Luffy, which is going to start either paying dividends on the life total that your opponent has or the card count in their hands. And so I do think the ability is underwhelming when you look at it from a single turn perspective, but you start doing that, over the course of 6, 7 turns, and you're really starting to get the upper hand against your enemy. And so first, we'll go over the 2Ks. So I'm running, I believe, 11 2Ks. We're running 4 Surus. A 2K that also on play, you can -2 cost to a character. And it's really great. It's Navy. You can search it with brand new. And a lot of the 2Ks that you choose now for this deck are both defensive for the counter, but also very utility for depending on what your situation calls for. Like this guy, the one-legged toy soldier. He's also 2K, 2 cost 0K power, but he has an activate main. You can trash his character and give up to one of your opponent's characters -3 cost during a turn. And so he does hit a higher threshold than Suru, and sometimes you just need that one extra minus. And so really good option to have. You can activate him the same turn you play him because it's an activate main. You're sending him into the trash. And so, yeah. And then you can always recycle either of these with Gecko Moria in the future. And so lastly, we have 3 T-Bones. Another Navy card that can be searched by brand new, 2K counter. He's a 5 cost, 5K power. And on play, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less. I've played this out in a couple of my matchups because, yeah, it's just sometimes you need something to KO, and having a 5 cost 5K body is not a bad thing because he can just swing right into the leaders next turn, and you're still able to remove something from your opponent's board. And so, yeah, I've played him out, but he's also a great target to grab back with Rebecca if you need an extra 2K in hand. And so, just another. There's a ton of different play lines in this deck. This deck, again, like most black decks now, it requires you to have quite a bit of knowledge on your matchups and knowing what you need in your trash at what time. And so, yeah, there would be times where I over counter to make sure I have stuff in my trash for either a Rebecca play or Moria play and things of that nature. And so we can go through that either in a later part of this video or a follow-up video. Maybe I'll do like a full masterclass in some of the play lines and some of the matchups. But we're running 4 brand new. Again, brand new is a great card. It's your turn 1 play on going second, and he replaces himself. He lets you grab a Navy card. What he does is Look at the top three cards. You can add a Navy card other than brand new to your hands, and then you send the rest to trash. And so he's also setting up your trash because it will be relevant too. We are running the 4-drop Lucci, so just having that filled out, it's really nice early on. Another EB01 card that most people probably don't play, but I think is actually fantastic, is the Laboon. So he's a 4-cost, 5k power. He has a 1k counter, and he has an activate main. You may rest his character and give one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during the turn. And so it's kind of like the Kuzan, the 4-drop Navy Kuzan, but you can activate the -4 cost the same turn you play him. And so that's what I really do like about him. Um, it just lets you cost reduce a little bit more and on that same turn. And he's also always going to be defensive in your hand because he has that 1k counter. And so the other 4-drop we're running is Kuzan. Two of them, you can search him with brand new because he has Navy. On play, you draw a card. You get to give one of your opponent's characters -4 cost when attacking. And so, yeah, this is another great card. It replaces itself in the drop, and it's always something that your opponent's going to have to get rid of. And so it becomes you start to deck check your opponent to say, hey, what can you do to deal with this character? And so, yeah, anytime you're drawing a card and replacing into your hand, it's really important because black does tend to run out of hand size as you start to utilize some of the characters and some of the abilities, and so it's great. So we're going to go over the KOing package now. We're running 3 of the EB01 Brook. So what this is he's a 3-cost, 4k power character. He has a 1k counter, which is great too. But on play or when attacking, you can give up to one of your opponent's -1 cost during this turn. Then KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 0. So you do have to get an opponent down to that 0 cost. But he's someone that can consistently KO something, not only on the play, but also continually when attacking. And so when this guy hits the board, your opponent also has to find a way to deal with it. Being the 4k power also makes it slightly annoying for RP Law because he now has to find a way to reduce its power in order to bottom deck it. And so another great option. He's great early, great end game as well. He's a target that Rebecca can bring back into play. So if you have a Laboon already out or a Kuzan out, or even a Toy Soldier out, you're hitting a 4 or 5 cost by recycling this with Rebecca. And this is one of the cool mini playlines you can do. You can do like a Moria into Rebecca, into Suru, and then then you can get Rebecca to pull back the Brook. And so now you're hitting even higher. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of cool little tips and tricks and ways you can deal with the board state with this deck. And so, yeah, I think it's a really strong card. If you can get Laboon and Brook out early, it's like devastating. And so, some of my favorite plays, like a Law will summon Gordon or something on turn 1, if they're going second, and then I just drop the Brook, KO it. Next turn, I drop the Laboon. Laboon rests itself, and Brook's KOing whatever else the Law summoned again, and it's great. Next, we have 3 4-drop Luccis. He's a 4-cost, 6k power. On play, you can place 3 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order, and then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 2, and one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 1. And so, again, you get the 2 for 1 with Lucci. I think he's a really strong card in this deck too, because now when you play him, if you hit 2 targets, Luffy swinging at 7 that turn. And so it's a really big swing turn for you if you can set that up. This card is an MVP card. It's Monkey D. Garp. So what he is a 5-cost, 6k power. And he has an activate main. You can trash a card from your hands and rest this character. And then you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 4. And so, yeah, again, if you have like Laboon out, you're now hitting a cost of 8. If you have a Toy Soldier, you're hitting a 7. And so this deck can get rid of really high cost stuff at a very minimum value. Just takes a little bit of setup. But then, yeah, the great thing about this card too is sometimes you look at it and you say, oh, but you have to trash a card. But uh, it's great. Being able to have the option to trash a card really helps you set up for the following turn, right? So say you're on your 6-drop turn, you can I'll go over the next card too before I talk about the play line, but it's the 6-drop Sakazuki. So on play, what he does is you may trash one card from your hand and KO up to one of your opponents with a cost of 5 or less. So he's hitting even higher. He's a 6 cost, 7k power, which 7k power is really hard to remove just from attacking into it. And so again, yeah, you have to trash a card, but in this deck, you don't really mind because you get to set up your trash. So there's plenty of times where I'm playing a Garp, playing a Sakazuki, and I'm putting a Rob Lucci in trash because I'll be on my 6th turn, and the next turn I really want to drop Moria and bring back a Lucci. And so being able to choose the card in which you're trashing to put in your choosing to trash, it's actually such a luxury in this deck because setting up your trash is so important. Lastly, we have 2 of the 6-drop Brooks. So what this character is a 6 cost, 6k power. On play, you can choose one of the options. You can either trash up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less, or your opponent places 3 cards from the trash at the bottom of the deck in any order. And so he is a tech option for dealing with a Sabo on board. He only hits a 4, but since you're just sending it directly to trash, you kind of bypass the ability that Sabo has that says you can't KO anything. And so, really good card, really necessary to any mirror matches / any black. And so, I'm running him at a 2 of because you really only want to see him once those Sabos hit the board at the end of the game. And so, but there's been times where if people still run Borsellino, he's a great drop to respond to Borsellino as well. And so you don't get the Luffy effect off of this Brook though because you're just sending it to trash. And so again, this ability is only on KO. But even then, it's still quite necessary. And so next we have our blocking package, which is going to be just the 3 Rebeccas. I am considering bringing this up to 4 because Rebecca really lets you grab back the utility pieces that you need. And so throughout my games, I was either grabbing back T-Bone as a 2K, but there were plenty of games where she grabs. Let's talk about her ability first. She's a 4 cost, 0k power. She has a 1k counter. She is a blocker, and then on play, you get to add 1 black character, which costs a 3 to 7, other than Rebecca, from your trash to your hand. Then play 1 black character with a cost of 3 or less from your hand rested. And so, again, when you look at 3 to 7, you're grabbing back basically a T-Bone and then Laboon all the way across this row. And so, as you're trashing things with things like Monkey D. Garp and Sakazuki, and even brand new, you can play the Rebecca to grab back the pieces that you need for the matchup, right? And so, say you need another KO, you can grab back Rob Lucci, Garp, or Sakazuki. You know, if you come across a Sabo, you can grab the Brook. If you're on your 10 turn, you can play it the same turn. So there's just so many options that you have with this deck. And Rebecca just kind of lets you just grab back the exact thing that you need. And so that's what makes Black strong currently, because they are playing from the trash a ton of times. And yeah, you're just able to get the pieces you need. Next, we have 4 5 cost Sabos. This is the 5 cost 6k power blocker Sabo that on play, you get none of your characters can be KO'd by effects, and then you draw 2 cards, trash 2 cards from your hand. Really great to be able to cycle in this deck. We do run quite a lot of bricks, and so again, sometimes we just need to play him and cycle our hands. But I think he becomes stronger the later you play the game, especially against the Black Mirror, uh, or especially against Sakazuki too. As you get later into the game, just denying your opponent from being able to KO your board when they already had used a lot of their bottom decking effects earlier on can be extremely punishing. Even if one or two bodies stick, that can often determine the game. And so, really strong card. I like it at 4 because you always want to see it every game, at least one every game, and so yeah. And then lastly, the only boss monster that we're really running is Gecko Moria. This card is what really truly activates this deck, like most black decks. And so, yeah, again, you're hitting so many different targets with Gecko Moria in this deck, and you're going wide after having punished your opponent with their board by KOing the board all throughout the early game, and then hitting bigger with Luffy every time we do that. And so by the time the Gecko Warrior comes out, usually your opponent's either low on life or low on hand size, and it's kind of like a nail in the coffin. And so he was the perfect boss monster that Black needed. And so, I really like him. I run him at 3 right now because I found myself only needing to see him once to really solidify a game, but you could argue running both him and Rebecca at 4. The deck list, as you see right now, it's quite tight. I'm running a lot of 3-ofs, a lot of 2-ofs, and so I'm having a little bit of trouble adjusting and finding what to remove. But as of now, this iteration feels the best. I'm seeing cards consistently enough and being able to dig and search deep enough to get the pieces that I need. And so, yeah. Lastly, we'll go with the events. We're running 2 Six King pistols. Again, it's just a zero cost event that allows you to trash a card from your hand, and then up to one of your leader characters gains 3,000 power during the battle. The trigger, I never really use it, but it can be used where you draw one card and KO one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 1 or less. But yeah, this is a really good defensive option in this deck because we do have so many bricks, and so it's a way to cycle the bricks out of your hand while defending. And again, it gives you the option too to sometimes I'll play this early just to get something in my trash that I know I needed for the next turn, and so it's a really good option to play that way. Don't be afraid. There was a game where I used it to over counter. I think it was like a 5K swing, but I needed a Suru in trash, and so I used it, put the Suru in trash. The next turn, I was able to play Gecko Moria into Lucci and Suru and wipe out the opponent's board, and it was what solidified the game. And so this is another really good tech option. Being able to choose what you trash really helps you set up your trash. And so uh, next we have 2 Ice Ages. I'm only playing 2 because we are playing like things like Kuzan, things like Laboon, things like One-Legged Toy Soldier, and so and our KO cards can hit higher, like Garp can hit a 4, Sakazuki can hit a 5, and so you do have a ton of options to KO higher cost bodies, and so I found 2 to be the perfect number, just to uh, take out those 1 or 2 big bodies after you're running low on resources. And then lastly, the most broken card, 4 Great Eruptions. It's a 1 cost event. You draw 1 card to replace itself, and you give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2 costs during this turn. And so, really good card. The trigger's great too. Your opponent chooses to trash 1 card from their hand. That's really strong too. I've used that if it's one of my last lives and I know I'm going to go for game next turn, I'll just oftentimes trigger that and uh, force the opponent to have even less of a hand size so that it's easier to calculate fatal. And so, this is the deck. Really strong, really fun. I think it does take a little bit of practice to get used to how the engine works, but once you do, it does have a strong place in the meta, I think. At least it feels 50-50 to me on some of those harder matchups too. But in my locals, my first round, I faced an Enel. In my second round, I faced the Sakazuki. In the third round, I faced the red purple law, so it was pretty much all meta decks except the finals, which was actually my hardest matchup of the day, which was against the Perona. And that one came really down to the wire. I'll probably do another video to go over the matchups, go over combos and in-depth, a more in-depth guide on the matchups and what you're going to look for what matchup. And I think I have a recording too of some of the matchups for my locals, so I can go through and talk about that as well. But yeah, this is the deck. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions, comments, please leave them below. I'd love to discuss and yeah, just talk about this deck. And so I really love it. I'm probably going to be playing it for the next couple of weeks, and so expect more videos on it. All right, thanks everyone.